The Interactive Brokers Trading Platform, also known as Trader Workstation, is an incredibly powerful trading platform with many different tools that you guys could use in your trading. However, the tool itself may be one of the least user-friendly platforms for brand new traders. So in today's video, I'm going to do my absolute best to break the platform down as simply as possible and hopefully leave you all feeling a lot more comfortable using it in your own trading. Now, jumping right into the general navigation of the platform, looking up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll first find your settings menu. This is where you guys can come to change the overall appearance settings, set your order defaults, or just some various other platform settings that we'll discuss a little bit later in the video. Looking right below that, towards the left-hand side of your screen, you'll also see a big button marked New Window. We'll get to this a little bit later, but this is how you guys can actually add the different tools to your platform. That would include things like adding an additional chart, or adding an option chain, or a watch list to your page. Again, it's just going to be how you're going to add additional tools to your platform. Looking right below that, we can actually see our current layout, which is where we actually have all of our tools displayed. This entire page can be customized and fitted to accommodate all of the tools you actually like to see and the tools you like to use. Now in my case, I currently have the default page pulled up, and right at the very top you can first see my order entry tool, which is how we can actually place trades in this platform. Right below that we can actually see a little chart of the stock that we're looking at. Then towards the right we can see a nice little watch list of stock tickers I'm keeping track of, and then right below that some live market news. Now finally, looking at the very bottom of your screen, in the lower left hand corner, you'll also notice a few tabs down there, which are all of the other layouts that we can navigate to. So down there we can see tabs like Mosaic, Classic TWS, Learn, and Crypto. We also have the ability to start fresh and create our own custom layouts by coming over here and selecting the plus icon. We can then either choose a blank slate to start fresh from, or head over to the layout library to use a template that Interactive Brokers has made for us. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and create a custom layout. So I'm going to come up here to where it says Enter Name, and I'm going to go ahead and name this tab Charts, and then hit Create. From there, it'll actually give you a nice little description or a step-by-step guide on how we're actually going to set up our custom layout. Looking here, you can see the very first thing it says to do is come up here to the new window screen, which remember I told you before is how we can actually access all of the tools. Looking here, you can see there are quite a few different tools within this platform, and to be completely honest with you, I am not going to go through the vast majority of these guys, but rather focus on the ones I think you're actually going to be using on a daily basis. So to begin with, let's say the very first thing I wanted to add to my custom layout was going to be a nice big chart. So I'm going to come down here to the Charts tab and then select Chart over here on the right-hand side. As soon as I selected that, you can see we get a chart added to our screen, and I could actually fit this exactly where I want it, kind of resize it to the right dimensions. Now that I'm happy with that, let's next say I wanted to have a nice little watch list on my right-hand side. So I'm going to come up here to New Window. I'm then going to look down below in the list here and find Watch List and go ahead and select that. I'm not a fan of where it placed it, so I'm going to go ahead and move that over to the right-hand side. Go ahead and fit it over there. And maybe make it match the size of my chart. The next thing I'm going to do is come up here to the New Window box, and I'm actually going to add the Order Entry tool, which is, again, how we're going to place actual stock trades in here. Doesn't need to be this big, but I'm going to go ahead and fit it in here. And then finally, the very last tab I'm going to add is actually a way to see my current portfolio. So I'm going to come up here to the New Window tab and then select Portfolio right here. This tab will actually allow me to see what I actually have in this account and how it's doing today. So I'm going to go ahead and fit this in the bottom left-hand corner. Make sure it fits well in there. And there we go. Looks nice. I've got everything fitted exactly where I want it. But of course, you guys can set this template up however you want, whatever tools you guys want to see. But now that we actually have the layout set up, let's next say I wanted to create a watch list for myself of stocks that I actually wanted to keep track of. Looking over here on the right-hand side, I do have my watch list selected, and at the moment this watch list is just named Watch List. Now the very first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and rename that. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on this, and we'll go ahead and rename the watch list. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and name it Tech Companies. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now that I've got that watch list renamed, I can then come up here to the empty white box and actually start typing in some symbols. The very first one I'm going to add is going to be Google, G-O-O-G, hit enter on the keyboard. You'll then see it pops up there, and I'll just hit enter one more time to actually add it to my watch list. I'm then going to quickly go through adding a few more, just clicking in this list here, adding Facebook, also go ahead and add Apple, and the last one I'll add is going to be Netflix, NFLX. But of course, you guys can add as many stock tickers to this watch list as you want, but looking up here at the top, we can now see all of the symbols that I'm looking at. We can see the last price that those stocks have traded for today. And then to the right, we can see how much they're up or down net change-wise or percentage-wise. Now, if you guys wanted to change these column headers right up here at the top, the information that's being displayed, we can either delete certain things or add certain things that we want to see. Now, one way to do that is just by hovering your mouse over the symbol right here or above the column, and you'll actually see a button here that says Insert Column. We could, of course, click on that and then add the column that we want to see, or we could come over here to the right and actually click on the Settings menu and then hit Settings one more time. This will then open up a pop-up window where we can see all of the column headers over here on the left-hand side, and then all of the columns we could add over here on the right-hand side. So let's just say for example purposes, I want to add the dividend yield. I always want to know the dividend yield of the companies that I'm looking at. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the Enter Filter text name box and type in dividend. And then looking down below, we can see there are actually quite a few informational columns for dividend, but I'm just going to come down here and select dividend yield percent and then hit add. Now that it's been added, I can just come down here and select OK, and we can see a new column has been added. In this case, it looks like the only dividend payer is Apple, and they have a 0.7% dividend yield as of right now. Another thing I'll point out is that you do have the ability to access your other watch lists, and to do that, we could just come up here to the plus sign. So let's go ahead and add another watch list just to the right of this one. I'm then going to come down here and select watch list. You'll then notice a pop-up window comes up where we can see all of the watch lists I've made in the past. So in my case, if I look over here on the left, I actually have a watch list called My Stocks. And if I click on that, you can then see I've got another watch list with actually the exact same stock tickers in here: Google, Facebook, Apple, and Netflix. But if I did want to add that, I could of course just come down here and hit add. And now I see a second tab up here for the My Stocks watch list or My Tech Companies watch list. But I think you guys get the idea. Creating a watch list in here is pretty easy. Now, moving on next to actually placing trades in this platform, buying and selling stock, the process is actually pretty straightforward. And I will mention there are a couple different ways to do this, but the way I'm going to focus on is using the order entry tool down here in the lower left-hand corner. Now, at the moment, you can see the stock ticker that we're getting ready to trade. So in this case, it is Netflix right here. Just to the right of that, we can see the current bid and asking price for the stock as of right now, and of course that's going to be constantly changing. Looking down towards the bottom, we can then select what it is we actually wanted to do. So down here we've got a buy and sell button. So in my case, let's say I wanted to buy some shares of Netflix. I'm going to go ahead and select buy here. Just to the right of that, I can then enter the quantity of shares I actually wanted to buy. So if I go ahead and select that, you can then see a little menu here, or you could of course just type in how many you wanted to trade. So in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and type in 5 shares and hit enter on the keyboard here. You can now see I'm about to buy 5 shares, and that's going to be an estimated cost of $922. Looking just to the right of the quantity box, I can then select the order type that I want to use. In this case, LMT is selected, which just means a limit order. Now, if I were to click on that, you're then going to see a little pop-up window with a bunch of different order types. At the moment, you can see limit, mid-price, market, MTL, REL, and actually if you came down here and hit this down arrow, there are even more inside of this list. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these in today's video. I'm really going to focus on the ones that I think you're actually going to use, and in this case, that's going to be a limit order, a market order, and a stop order. Beginning with a limit order, that simply means you are specifying a price. I only want to buy or sell these shares if I can get it for this price or better. So in the case of Netflix, we can see Netflix is currently trading for $184.59. Let's say I only wanted to buy these 5 shares of Netflix if it dropped down to $150. That would be an example of a limit order. Now the one right below that, the market order, that would mean I want to buy or sell these shares immediately. Now in the case of a market order, you don't even have the ability to specify a price. You're saying I want these shares immediately and I'll take whatever they're currently going for. Now, finally, the last one we're going to talk about is the stop order, which right here is STP, and that is a stop market order. Now, a stop market order is typically going to be used when you're already in the position and you want to get out before you lose too much money. So let's say I already have 5 shares of Netflix as of right now, and Netflix currently trading for $184. Let's then say if Netflix ever dropped down to $170, I wanted to get out of it because I didn't want to lose any more money. I was afraid if Netflix hit $170, it's then going to go down to $160, $150, and continue in a downward trend. So I could actually use that stop market order to get me out automatically if Netflix ever hit $170. Now, you can use stop orders to get you into a long or short position, but generally it's used to get you out of your position. Now, in my case, in today's video, I'm simply going to place a limit order. So I'm going to come back up here and select limit. I'm then going to come down here to the limit box where it actually specifies the price, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. This will then create a pop-up window, which I could select a specific price, but in my case, I'm actually just going to highlight it and type in a number. In my case, I'm saying if Netflix ever drops down to 170, I want to buy those 5 shares. Now that I'm happy with that price I set, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here, and we can see the price is locked in. Now, finally, the very last thing we're going to talk about in this order ticket is going to be the time in force. So basically, how long do you want this order good for? In my case, the time in force I currently have selected is a day order only, meaning if this order does not fill by the end of session today, just go ahead and cancel it. If you guys are on Eastern time, that would be 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. If it doesn't fill by 4, go ahead and cancel it. Looking right below that, you also have the ability to set it as GTC, which stands for Good Until Canceled. That simply means I want this order ticket to go out there every single day, 9:30 to 4, until it fills. So again, if I'm not able to buy these 5 shares of Netflix today for 170, try again tomorrow. Doesn't happen tomorrow, try again the next day, and so on until it either fills or until I cancel it. Looking right below that, you guys also have the ability to select fill outside the regular trading hours or allow in the pre-market. So if you wanted this order ticket good for the extended session, pre and post market, you could select fill outside RTH, or if you wanted it good for the pre-market, you could select that one as well. Now, in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and select good until canceled, which just means I want to buy these 5 shares of Netflix for 170 anytime it could happen. So good until canceled. Once we're actually happy with the order ticket, everything's filled out the way that we like it, we would simply come over here to the submit button and go ahead and select it. From there, we just get an order ticket just like before, and it's again saying we're going to buy 5 shares of Netflix at a limit price of 170, and if that fills, we're going to fill at $850 total. Now, if I actually wanted to place this order ticket, which I do in this case, I'm going to go ahead and hit transmit down below. Now that I've done that, you can actually see that this GTC order isn't truly good until canceled. It's going to be good until September 30th right here. But I'm okay with that, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, if you guys wanted to short stock, the process is very, very similar. So let's go ahead and flip to a different stock ticker. In my case, we'll come up here and go ahead and click on Apple. You can then see that all of the other windows change to Apple. So now I'm looking at an Apple chart on the top left. I've got Apple in my order entry, and that's because all of these tools are linked together. If you see here, this little chain link is green. If I came up here, this one's green, this one is green, this one is green. That simply means if I change one of those boxes, they will all change to match because they're all linked together. So now that I've got Apple pulled up and we can see the current price of Apple is roughly $137 a share. Looking on the left-hand side, I can see that it is shortable. I do have the ability to short Apple if I wanted to. So let's say we actually wanted to do that. What I'm going to do is come down here to the sell box, go ahead and select that. I'm then going to come over here to the quantity box and select how many shares I wanted to sell. Now at the moment you can actually see I already have 5 shares of Apple. So what I'm actually going to do is flip to a different stock ticker I'm not currently holding. Let's actually go to Facebook here. Again, looking over here on the left, I can see that it is shortable. So I'm going to come down here and select sell. I'm then going to come over here to the quantity box, and let's say I only wanted to short 2 shares of stock here. I'm going to go ahead and flip this from a limit order to a market order, which just means I want to fill immediately, and I'll take whatever the current price is. Since this order ticket is going to fill immediately, we'll go ahead and leave it as a day order because that doesn't really matter in this case. And now we'll come over here and select submit. We'll make sure everything looks right, that we do want to sell 2 shares at the market price. And now that I'm happy with that, I'll simply come down here and hit transmit. Now, as soon as we do that, you can see now that I have -2 shares of Facebook. So right here it says position -2, and over here in my little account info section, it says I have a negative position on Facebook. That's how we can quickly tell that we are actually shorting this stock. We sold 2 shares of Facebook that we did not own. Now, later down the line, if I wanted to cover this position and close out this short, I would need to buy back these shares. Now, in order for me to do that, what I'm going to do is come over here to this order entry box once again. I'm going to select buy. I'm then going to come down here to the quantity and select 2 because remember, that's all I have in this case is 2 shares of stock. I'm then going to leave it as a limit order and actually specify the price I wanted to buy these shares back for. Now, if we look over at the right-hand side, we can see that I did short the stock at $191.81, so I want to ideally buy it back for a lower price than what I shorted it for to get a profit. So in this case, let's go ahead and set the limit as exactly at 190. I want to go ahead and buy back these shares if it ever drops to 190. I'm also going to change this from, instead of being a day order, I'm going to change it to a good until cancel order. And then I'm going to hit submit and hit transmit. So now that I've done that, we can actually see my open order ticket to buy back these Facebook shares if it ever goes down to 190 to close out my short position. Now, let's say later down the line, you guys want to cancel this working order. You change your mind and you don't want it to be working anymore. We could come up here to the new window box. We could then come down here to the tab marked order management and select orders. This orders box is actually how we can see all of the working orders that we currently have. And I'm just going to go ahead and move it over to the right at the moment. So looking down here, we can actually see a working order to buy, it looks like some shares of Facebook at 190, which is our open closing ticket on Facebook. And then right below that, I also have an order ticket to buy some shares of Netflix at 170. So again, if we changed our mind, we wanted to cancel one of these guys, we would simply come up to the order ticket and go ahead and right click on it. From there, we would then just select the cancel button to cancel that working order. And now we can see that it has been canceled. We could do the exact same thing to Netflix if we wanted to by just right-clicking on it and hitting cancel. But I think you guys get the idea. Trading stock in here is pretty straightforward. Now, moving on from that, let's next say you guys wanted to trade options in this platform. So what I'm going to do is actually come down here and create a brand new layout specifically for options. So I'm going to come up here, type in options, and hit create. We can now see we've got a brand new template to start from, and we're going to come up here and select new window. We're then going to come down towards the bottom and select option chain. We can then see an option chain has been added, and I'm going to go ahead and fit this to my entire screen over here on the left-hand side. I'm then going to come up here and add a chart page as well, because I like to look at a chart while I'm trading my options contracts. Go ahead and fit that in here on the right. And then the very last thing I'm going to add is an order status page. So coming down here, we'll go ahead and select order management and working orders. All right, so now that I actually have an option chain, let me first describe what it is that you're looking at right here. To begin with, just like always, at the very top of your screen, you can actually see the stock ticker that we're trading, in this case, Netflix. Just to the right of that, you can see the current price for Netflix, $184.40. You can see Netflix is up $7.21 today, and it's up just over 4%. Looking right below that, we can actually see all of the options expirations for Netflix as of right now. So down there, you can see the May 20th expiration, the May 27th, and the June 3rd. Just to the right of each of those expiration dates, it tells you how far out that is. So in this case, May 20th is 1 day from today, May 27th is 8 days from today, and so on. Looking down the center there in the blue section, you can actually see all of the strikes that we're looking at as of right now. So for May 20th, if we look there, that is the 175 all the way down to the 192.5 strikes. Looking to the left of the strike prices, you can see all of the available call options. Looking to the right of those strikes, you can see all of the available put options. You may also notice that the shading of those options are also different. So the in-the-money options have the bluish purple background, whereas the out-of-the-money options have kind of like a tannish brown background. Looking at the top of the option chain, you can also see some column headers there, which is showing us what information we actually like to see. In this case, we can see the open interest, we can see the volume, the bid, the ask, and of course later on you guys can change those columns to include whatever it is that you like to see. Now before getting to that, you guys also have the ability to change some of these filter options. So looking up here at the top, we can see we currently have 8 strikes visible. So if I were to select that, I could of course pick how many strikes that I actually like to see. In my case, let's say I normally like to see 20 strikes at a time. So what I could do is come down here to the custom box, go ahead and type in 20 and hit enter. Once I do that, we can now see 20 strikes going down the center for each expiration. So now it goes all the way down to 160, all the way up to 207.5. Another filter we have the ability to change is how many expirations we're currently seeing. As of right now, we're only seeing 3 months out in time. Now that might be hard to see, but if I contract all of these, you can now see we only go out to August 19th of 2022. If we wanted to change that, we would simply come up here to where it says 3 months, and let's say we wanted to see every single expiration, so I'm going to hit max now. Looking down here, we can now see it goes all the way out to January 19th of 2024, which is 610 days from today. Now finally, the very last thing I'll mention is looking over here on the far right-hand side, we can also see the implied volatility for that expiration. So as of right now, the January 19th of 2024 options have 52% implied volatility. So now that you guys know what it is you're actually looking at here, let's next go over the process of actually buying or selling options in this platform. Now, to begin with, the very first thing I want to do is come down here to where it says Strategy Builder and turn that on. That's going to allow me to put the orders down here in the lower left-hand corner rather than opening up a brand new order ticket window. So now that we've got that taken care of, the next thing we need to do to actually trade the options is pick the expiration that we want to trade. In my case, let's say I was taking a look at the options that expire in 1 day from now, so the May 20th options. Once I select that, we can then see 20 available strikes going down the center from 160 to 207.5. And let's say for this first trade, I'm actually bullish on Netflix. I think Netflix is going up, and I just wanted to buy a long call option. Like most platforms out there, the way we're actually going to place a trade is by clicking on the asking price when we want to buy and the bid price when we want to sell. So for this one, again, I am bullish and I'm looking at buying a long call. And let's say I'm going to buy slightly in the money. I'm looking here at the 180 calls and I can see they're currently trading for $6.50. So in my case, if I actually wanted to buy that call option, I'm simply going to click on the asking price $6.50. As soon as we select that, we can see it gets built out in the strategy builder window down at the very bottom. So right here it says leg 1 is to buy one of the May 20th 180 strike calls, and we can see the current bid and asking price right down here at the bottom. Now I'm actually happy with most of the information here. It says we're using a limit order, I'm going to buy one contract, and now I could actually specify the price if I wanted to. In this case, let's say I wanted to try and get the midpoint somewhere between the bid and the ask, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in at, let's say 622. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a day order only. I'm then going to come over here and hit submit order. I'm going to make sure all of this looks right in the order ticket and then hit override and transmit. From there, we can actually see the order ticket on the right-hand side, and actually it looks like it is already filled. So I just bought that contract and I actually filled at $5.95. Now, if I was instead bearish on Netflix and I wanted to buy a put option, it would be the exact same process. So let's say we still wanted to look at the May 20th expiration. And again, I am now bearish on Netflix. I think it's going down. So looking here at the 170 strike put, if I come over here to the right, I can see the current asking price is 22 cents. Now, as soon as I click on that, just like before, the order ticket will come down here in the lower left-hand corner in the strategy builder. Right here, it says I want to buy one of the May 20th 170 puts. I can then see the current bid and asking price is 21 cents by 22 cents. I could then come down here to the limit price window and go ahead and specify the price. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in at the current asking price. I can then come over here and hit submit order, make sure everything looks right, and hit transmit. Now, looking over here on the order status page this time, you can actually see this order ticket has not filled yet. So as of right now, it still says we have an open buy order, and I still have an order to buy one contract, so 0 out of 1 have filled. Again, if you guys change your mind and you want to cancel that order, you could of course come over here and select cancel, or you could just right click on the order ticket and then either select cancel or modify if you wanted to change something. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out of this order, and now I'm no longer trying to buy that long put option. Now, you guys do have the ability to create spreads in here as well, so things like verticals or iron condors or jade lizards, but I'm going to go ahead and save that for a separate video because this is more of a beginner's guide to interactive brokers. But the process is actually pretty straightforward. Once you've got the strategy builder selected, you would then just pick the legs you want to buy or sell, and it'll create the spread for you. Now, moving off of options for a second, let's next go over how you guys can customize your charts inside of interactive brokers. Looking over here on the right-hand side, you can see I already have a chart pulled up, and in this case, we're looking at a Netflix option chart. So what I'm going to do first is actually change this chart to something else. I'm going to come up here and we'll go ahead and look at a Microsoft chart, let's say. Go ahead and pull that up. The first thing you guys may notice is the time frame that you're looking at is just to the right of the stock ticker. So in my case, it currently says I've got a 5-minute candlestick chart pulled up, which means each one of those green and red candles down below represents 5 minutes of trading. So if you guys wanted to change that, we could simply click on the time frame box right here and then select what candlestick size we wanted to use. Now in my case, let's say I wanted to look at a daily chart. So I'm going to go ahead and select daily candles right here. So now what it's telling me is each one of these candlesticks represents an entire day of trading, and if I wanted to look at the time frame, I could look at the very bottom and it'll tell me right here was roughly December of 2021. Like other platforms that you guys are probably used to, if you were to put your mouse up here and use the little scroll icon in the center of your mouse, that's how you guys can zoom in or zoom out of your chart. So let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit so I can get a clearer picture of what I'm looking at here. Now, if you guys wanted to add studies or indicators to this chart, the way you would do that is by coming up here to the menu at the very top. In this case, we're going to select Edit. Now, once we do that, we will get a menu with a bunch of different options, but in order to add studies, we're going to click on the Studies menu. You then get a pop-up window with all of the studies we currently have on the right-hand side, which is currently nothing. We don't have any studies on here at the moment. Then looking over here on the left, you can then see all of the studies that are available to us. Now you could open up each one of these and kind of look through the list and pick which ones you want to use, or you could just come up here to the little search box and type in what we're looking for. So in my case, let's say I wanted to add the RSI study. I can then look down here and it says Relative Strength Index. I'm going to go ahead and select that and then hit Add. The next ones I'm going to add are going to be the 50 and 200 period moving averages. So what I'm going to do is come back over here to the search box and go ahead and type in simple. Looking down below, I'm then going to select simple moving average and I'm going to go ahead and add it to the right 2 times. Now looking over here on the right, we can then see we've got the RSI study as well as 2 simple moving average lines. Now at the moment, those simple moving averages are the exact same. So I'm actually going to edit them slightly. We'll go ahead and select the first one here, and I'm going to go ahead and change it from the 9 period moving average to the 50 period. I'm then going to move on to the second one next and change that one from 9 to 200. And now that I'm happy with that, I'm simply going to come down here and select OK, and now I can see those studies that we just added. Up here at the top, I've got the 50 versus 200 simple moving average, and then down below my chart, I actually have the RSI. Now you guys also have the ability to change the chart type that you're looking at. So up here, if you don't prefer the candlesticks, you could come up here and select this little icon that says show bars. So right there, we actually change it from a candlestick chart to a bar chart. And then if I were to click on it one more time, it'll change it back to candlesticks. You also have the ability to draw trend lines in this platform very easily. Now in my case, I already have the trend line selected, but if I were to come up here to the edit menu, I could actually select trend line down below. Now, trend lines in this platform are a little bit different because I'm personally used to kind of clicking my first anchor point and my second anchor point to actually draw them. In this platform, we actually click, hold down, and drag where we want the line. So in this case, let's say I wanted to begin at the bottom of this candlestick. I'm going to go ahead and click and hold down with my mouse. I'm then going to drag over to the right, and you can actually see the trend line gets drawn right here. If I were then to let go, we can then see the trend line gets added to our chart. If I wanted to do that one more time and maybe draw more of a channel, I could come up here, click and hold down, again, drag to the right and let go. Now, to get rid of those trend lines, all I would have to do is right click on the line itself, and then from there I would just select remove this trend line. If I wanted to do the exact same thing to the one down below, again, I would just right click on it and then select remove this trend line. But hopefully you guys get the general idea of how to customize these charts. They're not too crazy. I won't say they're as advanced as like a Thinkorswim version or TradingView, but they are pretty helpful. Now, finally, the very last thing I wanted to discuss with you guys is how you can change the overall platform settings within Interactive Brokers. So this would include things like setting your order defaults or changing the overall appearance of it. And remember, in order to access that, we would just come up here to the settings menu in the upper right-hand corner. Now, as soon as I click on that, you will get a little pop-up window. And again, this is your settings pop-up window. And the very first thing I want to go over is changing the overall style or appearance settings. So in order to do that, we'll come over here to the left-hand side and select the display menu. We can then come over here to the style menu on the right-hand side. And down below, you can actually notice the color palette currently selected. In this case, the dark mode is selected, but if I were to click on that, I could flip it over to classic, or I could flip it over to light mode. In my case, I'm actually happy with the dark mode, but this is how you guys can change it. Besides that, if you guys wanted to create order defaults for yourself, you could come over here to the presets menu on the left-hand side. And then looking over here on the right, you could then adjust either your stock presets or your option presets. This is where you guys can adjust that. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and set my stock default. And let's say I typically only trade, let's say 10 shares at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10 in the quantity box. There's also a lot of other things I could change down here, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is, and I'm just going to come down here and select OK. So now that I've done that, if I were to come back over to my charts window, which is where I've got the order entry tool, and if I were to go buy some shares of Netflix right now, you can see my new order default is 10 shares at a time. But I know that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I'm sure many of you guys are still lost, but I promise you that is completely normal. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there are a lot of tools in here, and this isn't the most user-friendly platform on the planet. I'll definitely be making a lot more in-depth tutorials on specific tools in here in the future, but with a little bit of practice, you will get the hang of it. I really hope you guys all feel at least a little bit more comfortable with interactive brokers after this, but feel free to leave me suggestions for other video topics or other questions that you guys have down below, and I'll be sure to jump into it. But that is it for today. I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you on the next video.